As the officers were standing together in front of one of the commercial establishments on that street, a male, who has not yet been positively identified, charged at the officers with a hatchet in his hand. Unprovoked and not speaking a word, the male then swung at one of the officers with the hatchet, striking his right arm.
I told you were speeding. Sir! 5326, shots fired! Shots fired! 5326!
You can watch one TV station and get one type of perspective. You can watch another one and get another type of perspective. The only perspective I ever care about in my seat are the facts, and that's not what I'm getting on the news.
I think that the media exaggerates everything. The media has one side of the story, and it causes a big stink in the public. It's not good. It's a bad image for the police officers because nobody trusts them anymore. When a police is patrolling in your area, you immediately think that you're in danger when it should be the opposite. You should feel safer.
Media historically sensationalizes any issue. The sensationalization is good in some cases, but at the same token, now media has to learn to work with the institutional structures, the law enforcement and the communities. And it's not that they didn't work, they have worked in the past, and I think that's what they need to do. They have sensationalized the issue, which is good, because what it reinforces is there are inequalities in society, and how do we deal with it?
Their duty is to keep the peace. It's the whole entire point of being a police officer. You want to keep the public safe. You want to keep everything at peace and have nothing going wrong. And sometimes when you're faced in imminent danger, then you have to take your role into using a little bit of force. But that's only when yourself or the public is at risk.
Look, law enforcement is just as human as you are. We put our pants on one leg at a time. We bleed red. We wear blue, but we bleed red just like everybody else. We laugh, we cry. Except that the problem is we have a very definitive, difficult job to do.
They're wrong, then they lose their life, right? So that one moment of trusting somebody is going to cost them their life, right? And even if the chances are very slim that it's going to cost you your life, right? That's going to make you very, very suspicious of all other people.
It's human nature. You react based on what you think occurred. You may not have all the facts.
Of all the good things that the police officers do day in and day out, right? It will be wiped out, and it will not be considered as a valuable contribution the moment a police officer engaged in one bad incident.
You also have to understand law enforcement officers are human beings. They're dealing with frustration, their own frustrations. They're dealing with the frustrations of the system. They're dealing with the frustrations in terms of how they can be effective in terms of order maintenance. Simultaneously, the victim is also very frustrated because he sees this white police officer who is chasing him, and he wants to do whatever he needs to do in terms of arrest and apprehension. So the frustration levels essentially peak in both ends. And when they peak, something negative is going to happen.
20% of the people will be on your side regardless of what you do. Conversely, another 20% will be against you regardless of what you do.
Let's say that a person, 6'4", attempted to take somebody's weapon, a police officer's weapon, and then backed away, moved away, ran away, but then turned and started coming toward that officer again. Would that officer be justified? Forget Ferguson. Let's say that happened in Brockport, New York. Would that officer be justified in using deadly physical force? Perhaps. I can tell you this. If a 6'4" individual tried to take my gun and then started to try to leave the scene, but by my orders, I caused him to stop. He then turns and starts coming back toward me. I'm 5'7", 190 pounds. I'm 57 years old. Nobody says, the law does not say that I need to go hand to hand with somebody twice my size and half my age before I can use deadly physical force. The law says if I feel my life is in danger, I can use deadly physical force.
I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is, it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a to shoot me." And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun.
If you have a 6'4" person that's going to be aggressive, I can assure you the force is going to be much stronger than a 6'4" individual that's compliant. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with creed. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do strictly with how does that person reacting to the orders of a police officer.
Today's Ferguson protesters are no better than 1950s lynching whites. They want vigilant justice for Michael Brown regardless of innocence
People just
or guilt.
assume that Darren Wilson is guilty,
Michael Brown's
but
family is
nobody
really
takes
mad
into
because
account
Missouri
what that
offers
grand jury
Officer
found for
Ryan.
Officer
Officer
Ryan
Ryan.
was looking for
Ryan.
get them
As a
verdict
6'4"
as
man
justified
trying-
police action. Obama and Holder will indict anyway.
The line is drawn where it's always drawn. I am entitled to use sufficient force to overcome your resistance. Once I achieve compliance, the force stops, whatever that force may be. And again, it can change situation by situation, officer by officer. What I'm judged on whether or not my actions were, number one, reasonable.
Why not stay in the car? He's running away. Because he's not, my job isn't to just sit and wait. You know, I have to see where this guy goes.
So you felt it was your duty to give chase?
Yes, it was. That's what we were trained to do.
Is it reasonable for me to assume that you are about to do something that will harm me? Is it reasonable for me to assume that in order to prevent you from doing what I think you're going to do, that I am justified in putting my hands on you? I am justified in trying to overcome whatever resistance. We're trained to deal with the situation in a way that we can protect ourselves from injury or harm, and also we're also entrusted with preventing you from being injured or harmed, if at all possible.
In Ferguson, you had a private individual, a citizen, shot and killed by law enforcement. In Rochester, you had a private individual shooting and killing law enforcement.
At about 9:25 p.m. last night, Officer Darrell R. Pearson was shot and killed pursuing a suspect at 955 Hudson Avenue in the city of Rochester.
Citizens, sometimes it's human nature. You act and react based on what you think occurred. In law enforcement, you act and react based on what did occur. That said, look, nothing's an absolute. okay? You could be doing everything right and still lose your life. We tend to always want to place blame on something. We tend to always want to give reason for something. Give me a reason why the officer of the Rochester Police Department, Officer Pearson, was shot and killed. There is no good reason. You can look at it and critique it from a tactical perspective and say, you know, did he make a tactical mistake? Was he complacent? Was he tired? Was he sloppy? Was he whatever you want to label him as? And the answer to all those things are no. He wasn't complacent. He wasn't sloppy. He wasn't tired. What he did is he pursued an individual who ran from him. And as he grabbed him, the individual turned and shot him in the face, shot him in the neck. There is no way to prevent that. Unless you as a police officer or this community wants law enforcement to turn into paranoid individuals that have their guns out at every moment and turn and shoot whenever somebody rapidly turns toward them, which would be wrong, there is no way of averting what happened with Officer Pearson. It's part of the job. And unfortunately, it took a life. And I'm not trying to make light of this. What I'm saying is there are no absolutes in the world, and it's a dangerous job. Officer Pearson did everything by the book. The person that did something wrong was the person that turned and shot a police officer.
We have to come to grips with the fact that Officer Pearson is no longer here. That someone intentionally took his life. And it could have been any member of the department that was in that position. I mean, Officer Pearson didn't set out that day to get himself killed. And as far as we've been able to determine, he didn't do anything that he hadn't done 100 times before. The knowledge that it could have happened to any one of us is obviously a disturbing fact and is obviously a traumatic effect. I mean, like I said, Officer Pearson didn't do anything different than I would have done or any other police officer would have done. And in this one incident, he lost his life.